It started with a thud, not a roar. That's the best way I can describe the opening minutes of Real Madrid's so-called appearance at MetLife Stadium. Not a roar. Not a bang. Just a flat, tired thud. The sound of a sleeping giant rolling over and exposing its soft underbelly. And Paris Saint-Germain? They pounced on it like wolves with steak knives. By the 6 minutes, Fabian Ruiz was tapping home the opener and Real Madrid were already scrambling, looking around as if they'd just woken up in someone else's nightmare. The ball was rolling. Courtois was colliding with Dembele, and Asensio, bless his heart, made a decision so catastrophically bad it felt like performance art. Dembele is half ghost already. Don't give him invitations to haunt you. But no whistle. No review. Just that breathless moment where the referee glanced down at the carnage and thought, let's see how far this spiral goes. And it spiraled. Oh, how it spiraled. 3 minutes later, Dembele didn't even need to be asked. Rudiger offered him a gift, an absolute miskick of biblical proportions, and Dembele, icy as Pluto, slots it in like he's picking out socks in the morning. Calm, casual, cruel. 2-0 inside 9 minutes. 9. The cameras caught Luis Enrique barely reacting, and I don't blame him. This wasn't football, this was ballet with brass knuckles. Paris Saint-Germain weren't playing Real Madrid, they were dissecting them. A precise, bloodless autopsy on one of Europe's proudest clubs. And just when you thought, surely that's enough, they threw in one more. Ruiz again. But this time, it wasn't even off a mistake. It was built layer by gorgeous layer, like a sonata. Hakimi to Dembele, Dembele slicing them open, laying it off, and Ruiz, that finish. It was like he'd been practicing it in a dream. 24 minutes in. 3-0. Real Madrid were sweating through their socks, and not a hopeful, comeback-in-the-making kind of sweat. The kind of sweat that says, we've got no plan, no fight, and no brakes on this descent. From that point on, it wasn't really a football match anymore. It was damage control for Madrid and utter indulgence for Paris. Real couldn't string 3 passes together without someone in blue ripping the ball away like they were owed rent money. Trent Alexander-Arnold's absence felt like a thundercloud. But even if he'd been there, would it have mattered? When your whole side is leaking oil, one patch job won't save the engine. Courtois kept barking orders, flinging himself across the line, but you could feel it in the air. He knew it too. There's no point playing fireman when the whole building's an inferno. Every time Dembele touched the ball, he brought chaos. Real Madrid were backing away like people afraid to wake a sleeping lion. But the lion was already up, already roaring, already halfway through the meal. And here's the thing. PSG weren't just better. They were meaner. Hungrier, sharper. There was venom behind every pass, every press, every finish. You could see it on their faces. This wasn't just about winning. This was about sending a message. That first half, I've seen batterings before. But this was spiritual. It was existential. It made you question what football even is when a team like Real Madrid gets treated like an afterthought. Halftime came not a moment too soon. For Madrid, it was a mercy. For PSG, it was probably a bit annoying. They were having fun. But for those of us watching, that whistle felt like a gasp for air after nearly drowning in brilliance. You sit there, jaw slack, still trying to catch up with the scoreboard. 3-0. Inside 24 minutes. Against Real Madrid. And you wonder, is this just a moment? Or is this something else? Something bigger. Something that says Paris Saint-Germain didn't come to participate in the Club World Cup. They came to set it on fire. You could almost feel it, couldn't you? That awkward silence from Real Madrid coming out for the second half. The kind of silence where nobody's looking each other in the eye. You've just been pantsed in front of a packed stadium and millions watching. What exactly are you supposed to say at halftime? Let's keep it under 6, lads. But credit to them. If there's one thing this club knows how to do, it's pretend the house isn't burning. They strutted back out with their chests out, the way a cat walks away from falling off a table like it meant to do that. Still, by then, the game wasn't about the scoreline. That part was sealed, packaged, and ready for shipping. It was about dignity. It was about whether Real Madrid could claw back some semblance of identity. They tried. I'll give them that. Federico Valverde had a go. Brahim Diaz came on looking like he'd been told to fix a flat tire using vibes. Luka Modric summoned like a wise old Jedi, tried to massage some rhythm into the midfield. And Eder Militão, bless him, took a couple of optimistic swings from distance like he thought he was in a highlight reel. One of those even stung Donnarumma's gloves, which was cute. But even when Real Madrid started knocking a few passes together, PSG just watched them like someone humoring a toddler stacking blocks. The French side never really looked rattled, not once. Every time Madrid got within sniffing distance of danger, it was like PSG said, "Oh, that's adorable. Now hand it over." And then came the rotations. PSG had the luxury of swapping out luxury. Dembele walks off, Barcola walks on, Kvaratskhelia comes off. Goncalo Ramos enters the chat. They just kept reaching into a magic hat and pulling out another weapon. Meanwhile, Madrid are over there dragging Kylian Mbappe into the midfield like maybe he can help mop up. Somewhere around the 70-minute mark, the inevitability began to feel heavy. You knew PSG weren't done. They had that look in their eyes. The kind you get when you've already beaten the boss level, but you keep playing because it's fun to watch your enemies twitch. And then, with 3 minutes left, it happened. Bradley Barcola, this man with feet like jazz and a mood like mischief, danced his way into the box and fed Goncalo Ramos, who did what a predator does. No hesitation, just meat and teeth. Ramos buries it low and hard. Courtois' poor man doesn't even flinch. 4-0. The full stop. The insult. The final brick on the mausoleum they'd been building since minute 6. Not even a minute of added time. The referee probably felt pity, or maybe he just wanted to stop the bleeding. Either way, it was a mercy kill. Real Madrid, this proud, powerful club, trudged off like players who'd been caught sneaking out the back door of their own myth. And look, it's easy to make jokes, to laugh at the expense of a team so thoroughly undone. But deep down, if you love football, there's something heavy about watching Real Madrid collapse like that. Because it's not just any team, it's the team. The one with the pedigree, the ghost stories, the comebacks, the history. And to watch them get pulled apart like this, by PSG of all clubs, it messes with your understanding of balance in the football universe. But the game doesn't care about your narratives. It doesn't owe anyone symmetry. Sometimes it just hands you a Paris Saint-Germain in full peacock mode and a Real Madrid reduced to ash. What a second half. What a statement. So let's talk about the two teams, not just what they did, but what they were. Because this wasn't a match that just told you who's better. It told you who's real. Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, where do you even start? For years, they've been the TikTok team. Flashy, expensive, volatile, capable of brilliance but allergic to maturity. But now, this is something else. This was not Neymar and friends desperately freestyling for validation. This was a team with shape, with cruelty, with rhythm and purpose and teeth. Luis Enrique has somehow taken a club that used to feel like a luxury brand run by hypebeasts and turned it into a war machine in silk pajamas. Everyone was tuned in. No passenger performances, no sulking stars. Even when they were 4-0 up, they weren't dancing. They were dissecting. And it's not just talent, it's intention. They hunted in packs. Hakimi flying down the right like a heat-seeking missile. Neves and Ruiz snapping into tackles like they had something to prove. Kvaratskhelia dragging defenders, just for fun. They weren't waiting for Real Madrid to make mistakes. They were manufacturing them. They came into this match with the blueprint from that 5-0 destruction of Inter Milan still smoldering in their hands and said, "Cool. Let's do it again." There's a psychological savagery to that. It's not just winning. It's domination with a smile. Now, let's look across at Real Madrid. This was not some underdog story gone wrong. This was Real Madrid, Champions League royalty, showing up to a Final Four clash and playing like a team still in preseason. Sloppy, confused, fragile. It's almost too easy to blame the absences. Sure, no Trent Alexander-Arnold, no structure from the back. But even with him, would it have mattered? When you're losing every second ball, getting outpaced in transition, and forgetting the rules of marking, is one right back going to fix that? And it wasn't just tactical. It was emotional. They looked rattled. You know that look. When a team starts treating the ball like it's radioactive, when players stop wanting it, stop making angles, start hiding behind their markers like children behind curtains, that was Madrid in the first half. That was Madrid in parts of the second, too. This is a team that's built its reputation on impossible comebacks, on surviving the storms and delivering lightning. But there was no thunder here. Just silence. They weren't unlucky. They were unready. And that cuts deeper, because you expect them to know better. You expect them to be better. Even the substitutions felt more like shrugs than strategies. Bringing on Modric wasn't a tactical switch. It was a prayer. Bringing on Brahim Diaz was less about breaking lines and more about just doing something. Anything. Compare that to PSG. Every sub added something. Barcola added chaos. Ramos added a killer's edge. Seni Mayulu gave them control. It wasn't just rotation, it was escalation. One team came with a plan and a backup plan and a nuclear option. The other came with a brand and a brochure. And that's the part that stings. Because this wasn't some upstart giant-killing fairy tale. This was the supposed giant getting fed through a paper shredder by a team that's been laughed at, doubted, mocked, and now looks ready to take the crown. So yeah, this wasn't just PSG beating Real Madrid, this was PSG becoming PSG. Let's talk names now. Faces. The humans, or at least those posing as humans, who shaped this wild 4-0 fever dream. And yes, we start with Ousmane Dembele. Because of course we do. Dembele didn't just perform. He conjured. He carved his initials into the match like a kid scratching a tree trunk with a pocket knife. The man looked like he was moving through a different atmosphere. Everyone else was dragging their cleats through molasses, and Dembele, he floated. Like smoke. Like mischief. He created the first goal with a run that had Asensio question his entire job description. Then, he scored the second after embarrassing Rudiger, who looked like he'd been asked to guard a ghost. 2 goal involvements in 9 minutes against Real Madrid. That's not a stat, that's folklore. And Fabian Ruiz, if Dembele was the firework, Ruiz was the scalpel. Cool, calculating, perfectly timed. 2 goals, yes. But more than that, it was the intelligence, the serenity. He played like he had all the cheat codes and was politely pretending he didn't. A midfielder in the shape of water. Always in the right place, never flustered, always gliding into exactly the moment that mattered. Then there's Hakimi. That third goal? That give and go with Dembele was like watching a piano duet in the middle of a battlefield. Hakimi played with such pace and clarity it felt like his boots were plugged into satellite navigation. The man has a cheat code for every flank. Bradley Barcola came off the bench and treated the pitch like a dance floor. One of those substitutions where you think, oh right, him too? He made Fran Garcia look like a spectator, twisted defenders into wind chimes, and then set up Ramos with a pass that said, I could have scored, but this will hurt them more. And Ramos, he was on for 20, maybe 25 minutes, and still made his mark. A proper striker's finish. Nothing fancy, just lethal. He knew what he came for. On the other side, it's harder, because Real Madrid, well, they had players on the field. I checked, but performances? Not really. Thibaut Courtois spent most of the match in existential crisis mode. Can't fault him much, he made several decent saves. But when your defense is busy filming a horror movie behind you, there's only so much one man can do. Antonio Rudiger? Oh dear. From the miskick that gifted Dembele a goal to his general confusion when PSG swarmed, this was not his highlight reel. He played like someone who was just recently told what football is, and was trying his best. Raul Asensio, poor soul. That first error was a career-defining blooper, one of those moments that gets replayed in 1,000 montages titled When It All Fell Apart. You could see it on his face. He knew. Midfield? Jude Bellingham was invisible in all the wrong ways. Tchouaméni was a ghost. Modric, when he came on, tried to pick up the broken pieces with the energy of a dad sweeping up a shattered vase. Respectable. Pointless. And then Kylian Mbappe, who technically wore the shirt tonight. He had some chances early on, but he looked isolated, frustrated, and at times just utterly removed. You don't expect that from him. He's the spark. But tonight, a wet matchstick. The only one who looked like he was trying to wrestle the match back at moments was Valverde. That man always runs like he's trying to outrun his own disappointment. But one soldier doesn't win the war. So here we are. 4-0. A demolition job. But more than that, a kind of ritual. A shift. A reveal. Paris Saint-Germain didn't just win. They performed. They exorcised old ghosts. They told the world, we are no longer the team you laugh at in March. We are no longer drama in search of a script. And Real Madrid, they got schooled. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.